Mountain Man's final bid saves fat red-dressed widow, and her secret could rescue the town.
The scorching desert sun beat down mercilessly on the small, dust-choked town of Red Rock. Inside the ramshackle auction house, the air was thick with tension and the sharp scent of leather and sweat. Thorn bushes scraped against the wooden siding as a hot wind whipped dirt through the open doors. The crowd had gathered not for horses or cattle, but for a different kind of sale, a sale of desperation.
Eliza, the widow, sat quietly on the stage, her large frame cloaked in faded but sturdy fabrics. Her once proud eyes flickered with fear and exhaustion, but no one dared pity her openly. Rumors clung to her like desert dust, a secret she guarded fiercely, known only to the man standing silently in the back, Jack Harper, the mountain man with a shadowed past. Jack's weathered face remained impassive as the auctioneer called the bids, his voice echoing through the wooden rafters. Each call was met with greedy murmurs and raised hands. When Eliza's price was about to be claimed by one of the town's wealthiest landowners, Jack stepped forward. His voice, deep and resolute, cut through the din.
"I'll take her." A hush fell over the crowd. The murmur ceased, replaced by sharp, disbelieving glances. The elite, accustomed to wielding power without challenge, bristled at this unexpected defiance. Whispers rippled. What did Jack know? Why risk everything for her?
Jack met Eliza's eyes, silently promising protection. This was no mere purchase. It was a rescue mission fueled by knowledge of her secret, one that could unravel the very foundations of the local power structure. As the hammer fell with a decisive bang, Eliza was led down from the stage, her steps hesitant but hopeful. Outside, the desert wind howled, carrying with it the promise of a difficult fight ahead. Jack knew that saving her was only the beginning. Exposing the truth and standing against the ruthless elite would demand every ounce of his strength and courage. With the crowd watching, Jack and Eliza disappeared into the barren landscape, where survival meant more than just battle. It meant reclaiming dignity, justice, and a chance at a new life. As they make their escape into the unforgiving desert, the shadows of the elite grow longer, and danger stalks their every step. Jack must prepare to face powerful enemies determined to silence the widow, and anyone who dares protect her. The desert night cloaked the rugged canyon in silence, pierced only by the faint crackle of a small fire. Jack Harper and Eliza, now safe from the auction's grasp, sat side by side beneath a canopy of stars. The ledger, worn and weathered, lay open between them, a fragile record of decades of greed and corruption held tight in the widow's trembling hands. Eliza's voice was barely above a whisper. "They believed they owned me. My husband's debts were their chains, but this ledger is the key to breaking them. Names, dates, bribes, it's all here. If the town ever learns the truth, their reign will crumble." Jack studied the document carefully, tracing the ink-faded lines with a rough finger. "This changes everything," he said, "but it also makes us targets. The rich won't let their secrets go unguarded." A sharp desert wind stirred the campfire embers, reminding them of the danger lurking just beyond the canyon walls. Jack's eyes narrowed as he scanned the horizon where faint lights flickered, scouts sent to track their flight. "We need allies," Jack said firmly. "We can't face the elite alone. People who've suffered under their rule, farmers, miners, even some merchants, they might stand with us if we show them the truth." Eliza nodded, resolve hardening her features. "I've lived in fear too long. It's time to confront the darkness." Through the night, they planned their next moves. how to spread the ledger's revelations, whom to trust, and ways to avoid traps set by the town's powerful few. Every raised fist in the ledger's pages was a call for justice, and Jack was determined to answer. As dawn spilled gold across the jagged cliffs, the distant clatter of hooves warned of an approaching posse. The mountain man and the widow exchanged a grim glance. There was no turning back now. Their flight had become a fight for truth and freedom in the relentless desert. Hook for Chapter 3. The local elite tightened their grasp, sending hunters and spies to retrieve the ledger and silence Eliza. Jack must navigate a web of betrayal and danger, rallying unexpected allies and preparing for a desert showdown that could decide the town's fate. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the endless dunes of the desert. Jack Harper guided his horse through the shifting sands, Eliza riding close beside him on a borrowed mount. The auction house was miles behind them now, but the weight of that moment lingered like a storm cloud. Dust kicked up by their horses swirled in the dry air, and the distant howls of coyotes echoed like warnings from the wild. Eliza shifted uncomfortably in the saddle, her large frame making the ride arduous. Sweat beaded on her brow, mixing with the fine layer of sand that clung to her skin. She had been silent for hours, her mind a whirlwind of fear and gratitude. Jack, with his weathered face and piercing eyes, glanced at her occasionally, sensing the turmoil. He knew the desert well, its unforgiving heat by day, its bone-chilling cold by night. But more than that, he knew the burden of secrets, having carried his own for years as the mountain ghost, a man who had fled the mountains after a betrayal that cost him everything. "We need to stop soon," Jack said, his voice low and steady, cutting through the wind. "Horses are tiring, and so are you. There's a canyon up ahead, shelter from the wind and prying eyes." Eliza nodded, her hands gripping the reins tightly. "Thank you, Jack, for what you did back there. No one else would have bid on someone like me." Her words carried a hint of self-doubt, shaped by years of whispers and judgment about her size and solitude. But Jack saw beyond that. He saw a woman with fire in her spirit, guarding something powerful. They reached the canyon as twilight deepened, the red rock walls rising like ancient sentinels. Jack dismounted first, helping Eliza down with a firm but gentle hand. She was heavier than most, but he handled it without strain, his muscles honed from years of surviving in harsh terrains. They tethered the horses near a trickle of water seeping from the rocks, a rare oasis in this barren land, and built a small fire using dry scrub brush. The flames crackled to life, pushing back the encroaching darkness. As they sat by the fire, Eliza finally broke the silence. "You didn't do this out of pity. I saw it in your eyes at the auction. You know something. About me. About what I carry." Her voice trembled slightly, but there was strength beneath it. Jack poked at the fire with a stick, sparks dancing upward. "I've heard rumors in the saloons and trading posts. Whispers about a widow who knows too much, who's been marked for sale not just for debts, but to silence her. Tell me the truth, Eliza. If we're in this together, I need to know what we're fighting for." She hesitated, her hands fidgeting with the edge of her cloak. The desert night was cooling rapidly, and she pulled the fabric tighter around her ample frame. Memories flooded back. Her husband, a quiet clerk who had uncovered the elite schemes, dying suddenly under suspicious circumstances. She had inherited not just his debts, but his hidden ledger, a book that detailed every illicit deal, every stolen acre of land, every family ruined by the powerful few who controlled Red Rock. With a deep breath, Eliza reached into her saddlebag and pulled out the worn, leather-bound volume. It was thick, its pages yellowed and filled with meticulous handwriting. "This is it," she said, handing it to Jack. "My husband's work. He documented everything. The bribes to judges, the forged land titles, the way they've been forcing people into debt slavery to seize their properties. Names like Harlan Vance, the biggest landowner, and Mayor Ellis, they're all in here. If this gets out, their empires fall. Jack flipped through the pages carefully, the firelight illuminating rows of numbers, dates, and incriminating notes. His brow furrowed as he recognized patterns, families he knew from his travels, driven off their lands or worse. "This is dynamite," he muttered. "No wonder they wanted you sold off. They'd bury you in some remote ranch, make sure you never talk." Eliza's eyes welled with tears, but she wiped them away fiercely. "They killed my husband for this, made it look like an accident, a fall from his horse in the canyons. I hid the ledger and tried to blend in, but the debts piled up. They engineered it all to force me onto that auction block." Her voice grew stronger, fueled by the telling. "I'm not just a widow to them, I'm a threat. And my size? They use it to mock me, to make people dismiss me as weak. But I've carried this secret like armor." Jack set the ledger down, his mind racing. He had his own reasons for hating the elite. Years ago, they had cheated him out of his mountain claim, forcing him into a life of wandering. "We're alike, you and I," he said, "outcasts fighting shadows. But with this, we can bring light. We head to the mining camps first. Folks there have grudges against Vance and his kind. Rally them, spread copies of key pages. Make it impossible to silence us all." Eliza looked at him, surprise mixing with hope. "You'd risk your life for this? For me?" "Not just for you," Jack replied, staring into the flames. "For everyone they've crushed. My past taught me that silence is the real chain. We break it together." They spent the next hours planning in detail routes through hidden arroyos to avoid patrols, contacts in nearby settlements who might harbor them, ways to duplicate the ledger using whatever paper and ink they could find. Jack shared stories of his mountain days, evading bounty hunters, surviving sandstorms that buried entire caravans. Eliza, in turn, revealed more about the elite's web, how they controlled water rights, starving out small farmers, and bribed sheriffs to look the other way. As the fire died to embers, a distant rumble echoed. Hoofbeats on the hardpan. Jack doused the flames quickly, pulling Eliza into the shadows of the canyon wall. "They're closer than I thought," he whispered. "Vance's men, no doubt. We move at first light, straight into the heart of the Badlands." Eliza clutched the ledger to her chest, her heart pounding. For the first time, she didn't feel alone in her burden. Jack's presence was a shield, his determination a spark that could ignite change. But as the riders' lanterns flickered in the distance, she knew the path ahead was fraught with peril, betrayals, ambushes, and the relentless desert itself. Dawn crept slowly, painting the canyon in hues of orange and gold. Jack saddled the horses, his senses alert to every sound. Eliza mounted with effort, but her eyes held a fire that matched the rising sun. "Whatever comes," she said, "we face it head on." They rode out, the ledger their weapon, the desert their battlefield. Behind them the pursuers closed in, but ahead lay the promise of justice, if they could survive long enough to claim it. With the pursuers drawing near and the ledger's secrets burning a hole in their plans, Jack and Eliza seek refuge in a hidden mining camp. But betrayal lurks among potential allies, forcing them to question trust in a world where greed knows no bounds. The sun blazed mercilessly over the jagged Badlands as Jack and Eliza pressed deeper into the desert's heart. Their horses plodded through shifting sands, leaving faint trails that the wind would soon erase. Jack's keen eyes scanned the horizon for any sign of pursuit, the distant dust clouds that could signal Vance's hired guns.
Eliza rode beside him, the ledger tucked securely in her saddlebag, its weight a constant reminder of the storm they had unleashed. "We'll reach the mining camp by dusk," Jack said, his voice rough from the dry air. "Folks there have no love for the elite. They've lost homes, families to those land grabs. If we show them the proof, they might join us." Eliza nodded, wiping sweat from her brow. Her large frame made the ride grueling, every jolt of the horse sending aches through her body. But pain was nothing new. She had endured judgment and isolation for years, her size a shield against the world's cruelty as much as a target for mockery. "And if they don't believe us? Or worse, if words already reach them?" Jack's jaw tightened. He had survived betrayals before, friends turning for a bounty, allies selling out for scraps. "We watch our backs, trust no one until they prove themselves." As twilight painted the rocks in deep oranges and purples, they spotted the camp. A cluster of weathered tents and wooden shacks huddled around a dry gulch, lanterns flickering like fireflies. The air smelled of dust, sweat, and the faint metallic tang of ore. Miners paused their labors, tools in hand, eyeing the newcomers with suspicion. A burly man with a scarred face stepped forward, rifle slung over his shoulder. "State your business, strangers. This ain't no tourist spot." Jack dismounted smoothly, helping Eliza down with a steady hand. She stood tall despite her exhaustion, meeting the man's gaze. "We're here because we've got something you all need to see. Proof that Vance and his cronies have been stealing your lives away." Murmurs rippled through the gathering crowd. Jack pulled the ledger from the bag, holding it up like a talisman. "This book's got it all. Forged deeds, bribed officials, families driven into debt slavery. Eliza here's been guarding it, and they tried to auction her off to silence her forever." The scarred man, who introduced himself as Zeke, took the ledger cautiously, flipping through pages under lantern light. His eyes widened at familiar names, his own brother's land seizure listed in cold ink. This could change everything. Whispers turned to excited chatter as more miners crowded around, passing the book hand to hand. Eliza spoke up, her voice gaining strength. "We've all suffered. My husband died for this truth. Join us, and we can expose them, take back what's ours." Her words resonated. Many nodded, sharing stories of lost claims and broken dreams. For the first time, Eliza felt seen, not as a burden, but as a beacon. Jack watched carefully, noting faces. A young miner with shifty eyes who lingered too long near the ledger. An older woman who nodded fervently but avoided eye contact. Internal doubts gnawed at him. His mountain days had taught him that greed could corrupt even the downtrodden. As night fell, they gathered around a central fire, planning rallies in nearby settlements, ways to duplicate the ledger's pages using the camp's scant supplies. But as conversations deepened, tension simmered. Zeke pulled Jack aside. "Not everyone's on board. Some here owe debts to Vance, might be spies." Jack's instincts flared, his hand never far from his revolver. Midnight brought chaos. A sudden shout shattered the quiet, "Traitor!" followed by gunfire. The young miner Jack had suspected lunged for the ledger, pistol drawn. Bullets whizzed through the air, tearing into tents and scattering embers. Jack tackled Eliza to the ground, shielding her with his body as chaos erupted. "Stay down," he yelled, drawing his gun and firing back, hitting the traitor's shoulder. Miners scrambled, some fighting the betrayer, others fleeing into the darkness. Zeke rallied a few loyal ones, forming a hasty defense. "He's one of Vance's plants," Zeke bellowed, wrestling the spy to the ground. The man spat curses, revealing payments for information. "They promised me land if I delivered the book." Eliza clutched the ledger, hard pounding. In the frenzy, she glimpsed the true cost of their quest. Blood on the sand, friends turning foes. Jack's quick thinking saved them, but the camp was in ruins, trust shattered like the bullet-riddled wagons. As the gunfire faded, Jack helped Eliza to her feet. "We can't stay. Grab what we can and ride." They mounted swiftly, Zeke and a handful of true allies joining them. "We'll spread the word elsewhere," Zeke promised, "but watch for more snakes." Riding into the starry night, Jack reflected on the betrayal. It stung, reminding him of his own past losses. Eliza, riding beside him, whispered, "We almost lost it all." Jack nodded. "But we didn't, and now we know. The fight's just begun." The desert stretched endless, hiding dangers in every shadow. With the ledger intact, but enemies closer than ever, they pressed on, forging a path through uncertainty toward a reckoning that could free them all or bury them in the sands. Betrayed and on the run once more, Jack and Eliza head toward a forgotten desert outpost where old acquaintances might offer aid. But as the elite's forces close in, a high-stakes confrontation looms, testing loyalties and revealing even deeper secrets. The moon hung low over Silver Springs, casting silvery light on the rusted skeletons of old mining equipment. Jack Harper paced the perimeter of the outpost, his boots crunching on gravel, senses attuned to every rustle in the desert night. Eliza sat inside Mara's cabin, the ledger open before her, its pages a map of corruption that could either save them or doom them all. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that precedes a storm. Dry, electric, unforgiving. Mara joined Jack outside, her rifle slung over her shoulder. "Scouts report Vance's men are closing in, 24 heavily armed. They'll hit before dawn." Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed the weight of past losses. She had fled the mountains with Jack years ago after a similar betrayal, and now history seemed to repeat itself. Jack nodded, his mind a whirlwind of tactics. "We use the terrain, funnel them through the narrow pass. Tomas and Silas on the high ground with rifles. Lena prepares bandages and escape routes. Eliza stays with the ledger. It's our ace." Inside, Eliza pored over the book, her large hands steady despite the fear gnawing at her. She had always been underestimated, her size a barrier that kept people at arm's length, but it had also made her resilient, a keeper of secrets in a world that dismissed her. "This isn't just about me anymore," she murmured to Lena, who nodded while packing medical supplies. "It's about every family they've ruined." As the group gathered for a final briefing, tension simmered. Tomas fidgeted, avoiding eye contact, while Silas grumbled about risks. Jack's instincts flared. He had spotted Tomas slipping away earlier, a shadowy figure in the dusk. "Everyone knows their role?" Jack asked, his gaze piercing Tomas. The young scout muttered agreement, but doubt lingered. Midnight brought the storm. A distant rumble of hooves grew into a thunderous charge. "They're here!" Mara shouted. Gunfire erupted, bullets ricocheting off metal and wood. Jack dove for cover behind a barricade of crates, returning fire with precise shots that felled 2 riders. "Hold the line!" he bellowed. Eliza, sheltered in the cabin, clutched the ledger, her heart racing. Shouts and screams filled the air, the clash of loyalty against greed. Mara picked off assailants from a rooftop perch, her shots true. But chaos reigned when Tomas turned, firing at Silas from behind. "Traitor!" Silas gasped, clutching his side before collapsing. Jack spun, rage fueling his movements. He tackled Tomas, wrestling him to the ground amid the fray. "Who bought you?" he growled, pinning the scout's arms. Tomas spat. "Vance promised gold, more than this dust hole offers." A swift punch silenced him, but the damage was done. Vance's men breached the outer defenses, flames licking at tents from thrown torches. Eliza burst from the cabin, ledger in one hand, a pistol in the other, borrowed from Mara. "We can't let them win!" She fired wildly, her shots scattering a group advancing on Jack. The mountain man rose, gratitude flashing in his eyes. Together they rallied the remaining defenders. Lena dragged Silas to safety. Mara provided covering fire. The battle raged under the stars, the desert sand stained with blood. Jack's mind flashed to his past, betrayals in the mountains that left him scarred and solitary. But here, fighting alongside Eliza, he felt a new purpose. Her courage, born from years of quiet endurance, inspired him. "Push them back," he yelled, leading a countercharge that drove the attackers into retreat, their numbers thinned. As the gunfire faded, dawn crept over the horizon, revealing the toll. Wounded allies, smoldering ruins, Tomas bound and confessing under duress. "Vance knows about the ledger," he admitted. "He's rallying the full posse, sheriffs, mercenaries, everyone."
Eliza knelt by Silas, bandaging his wound. "We exposed one snake, but the nest is stirring." Her voice was firm, the ledger her anchor. Jack stood, wiping sweat and blood from his face. "Then we take the fight to Red Rock. Duplicate the pages, send riders to every corner. Make the truth unstoppable." Mara agreed, her resolve hardened. "I'll hold the outpost with the wounded. You two go, in this." They spent the early morning hours copying key excerpts, sealing them in pouches for messengers. Eliza reflected on her journey, from auction block humiliation to frontline warrior. "I was invisible before," she said to Jack. "Now they see me, and they'll fear us." Riding out as the sun climbed, with a small band of loyalists, they headed toward the heart of corruption. The desert whispered of dangers ahead, ambushes, chases, the elite's desperate grasp on power. But with each mile, their alliance grew, fueled by the ledger's unyielding truth. In Red Rock, Vance paced his opulent office, fury boiling. Find them, burn that book. But deep down, he knew the sands were shifting. A reckoning born of secrets long buried was rising. As the elite unleashed their full might in a massive desert assault, Jack and Eliza lead a ragtag army into the ultimate showdown. With everything on the line, shocking revelations emerge, and the battle for justice reaches its fiery peak. The desert winds howled like vengeful spirits as Jack Harper and Eliza led their ragtag army toward the heart of Red Rock. The sun beat down relentlessly, turning the sand into a shimmering furnace. But determination burned hotter in their hearts. Copies of the ledger had spread like wildfire. Miners, farmers, and outcasts now marched beside them, armed with rifles, pitchforks, and the unyielding truth. Vance and his elite forces waited in the town square, barricaded behind wagons and hired guns, their empire teetering on the edge of collapse. Jack rode at the front, his weathered face set in grim resolve. "This ends today," he said to Eliza, who clutched a pistol and the original ledger. Her large frame, once a source of mockery, now symbolized unbreakable strength. "We've come too far to back down." Eliza nodded, her eyes fierce. "For my husband, for everyone they've broken, we fight." Memories flooded her, the auction's humiliation, the betrayals, the nights of fear. But Jack's presence had transformed her isolation into partnership, her secret into a weapon. As they crested the final dune, Red Rock came into view. A dusty sprawl of saloons, shops, and the opulent mansions of the corrupt. Vance's men opened fire, bullets kicking up sand in deadly sprays. "Hold the line!" Jack shouted, dismounting and taking cover behind a rocky outcrop.
His allies returned fire, the air filling with smoke and the acrid scent of gunpowder. Chaos erupted. Miners charged forward, their picks swinging like axes, while farmers provided covering shots. Eliza, sheltered behind a boulder, fired methodically, her shots felling a guard who aimed at Jack. "They're faltering," she called, hope surging despite the fear gripping her chest. Vance, from his vantage on a balcony, bellowed orders, his face twisted in rage. "Crush them! The ledger is a lie!" But as more townsfolk joined the fray, emboldened by the revelations, his lines cracked. A young deputy, recognizing his family's name in the copied pages, turned his gun on his own side. "No more!" he yelled, sparking defections. Jack pressed the advantage, leading a flank assault through back alleys. He burst into Vance's mansion, confronting the man himself in a lavish study lined with stolen wealth. "It's over, Vance. The truth is out." Vance sneered, drawing a hidden derringer. "You think a book and a fat widow can end me?" The insult stung, but Eliza, bursting in behind Jack, disarmed him with a swift kick. "That fat widow holds your downfall," she said, voice steady. The battle raged outside. Screams, gunfire, the clash of bodies. Allies fell. Zeke from the mining camp took a bullet shielding a child. Mara fought valiantly but was wounded. Jack's heart ached for the losses, reminders of his solitary past. Yet, as Vance's forces surrendered, the square filled with cheers. The elite were bound, their secrets laid bare for all. In the aftermath, as dust settled and wounds were bandaged, Jack and Eliza stood amid the victorious crowd. "We did it," Eliza whispered, tears mixing with sweat. Jack pulled her close. "Not without cost, but justice prevails." Townsfolk gathered, destroying false debt records, reclaiming lands. Vance and Ellis faced trials, their empires dismantled. Eliza, once outcast, became a symbol of resilience. Jack reflected on his journey, from mountain ghost to leader, finding purpose in unity. As night fell, stars blanketing the desert, they knew peace was fragile. Whispers of remaining loyalists lingered, but hope had ignited, a flame that would guide Red Rock forward. The victory brought revelations. Hidden allies emerged, sharing more evidence of corruption. Jack uncovered a personal tie. Vance had orchestrated his own mountain betrayal years ago. Eliza confessed a final secret. Her husband hadn't died accidentally. He was murdered, and she had proof linking it to the elite. This bonded them further, turning survival into a shared future. Crowds chanted their names, but Jack warned, "This is just the beginning. Rebuilding takes time." Eliza agreed, her hand in his. "Together, we'll see it through." The desert night cooled, stars witnessing the birth of a new era. Scars remained, but so did resolve, forged in battle, tempered by truth. With the elite defeated, Jack and Eliza faced the challenges of rebuilding Red Rock. But lingering threats and personal demons test their bond, leading to an unexpected twist that could change everything.